All right, Purist, so what if you ended up needing the motor for your project, you were looking for something in particular, and you would come across it local to you, which was like a nice surprise. You ended up getting, say for instance, you had a 69 or 70 fastback, and you were looking for, I don't know, single overhead cam motor, the stock motor, you know, the big NASCAR motor. You end up getting a really good deal on it. You find it, you score it, bring it back to the house, you start disassembling it, and then you realize not only did you get something rare and desirable, but you ended up finding something that was even better. So I've got a similar story to that one, the question I asked. You go buy a motor and you're looking for, well, we'll just say this. It could be the single overhead cam camera motor 427. It could be 454 LS6 to go into Chevelle. It could be the 427 that went into the 67 Corvette. Just say you're looking for something like that. Like it's really hard to find. And it will add another caveat to that. It was not sold in the US. So a friend of mine that I've known for quite some time is a mechanical engineer, was an SCCA racer, raced Corollas. It was mid-70s Corolla that he raced in the SCCA, and ended up later in life wanting to buy one as a street car, bought one off of Bring a Trailer. And you can actually go to the website, our website, puristmotorsports.com, and look at the blog build on what is being done to the little Abeja Roja, as we call it, the red B, that as we call it. There's a lot of things that needed to be done to the car to bring it up to Michael's standards. That's who owns the car, Michael. And he was contemplating a motor swap for it, whether it would be a modern Lexus V8 or V6 or some, in the vein of, he was thinking about staying in the same family of Toyota, which is Purist to a degree. It's one of those things where if you stay within the brand, I think that's a Purist thing. At least that's what I believe. It's no different than people putting coyotes and, you know, foxes and stuff. That's Purist to me. It's not putting an LS in it. So he comes across a local ad that has a dual overhead cam motor out of the Corolla and other models. I forget which model it is that was sold in Japan that it came in. I want to say it's Corolla, and then there were different levels of this engine up to turbocharged. And so he got this, and it ended up being more than he bargained for. Got a good deal on it, and then got it home. When we started disassembling it, the initial thought was to change the head from that motor over to his motor that's in the car, which could be done, and it turned it into a dual overhead cam motor. Well, it ended up being a little bit bigger than that. He pulled it apart, and it had all of the modifications that he himself would have done. And then come to find out, after opening it up and talking to the person he bought it from and some other people, it was a motor that had been used in a racing series. And basically the driver got it through tech, probably won a couple of races handily with it in the class he was in, and then they were like, yeah, don't bring that back, pull that out. Maybe in one race, maybe in two, I forget. But Michael has a whole story on it, which we could talk about in another video. But I wanted to show you the process he's going through. I asked him, and he politely obliged at putting together a video of assembling this rare dual overhead cam Hemi head little 4-cylinder that goes into a Corolla. Well, it's going into his Corolla. There are a number of different cars that could be put into from that era, but the Corolla is what he's putting it into. And well, it's just very unique. I'll let him explain it and then show you guys what he's going through to put it together, and then enjoy.
Hey everybody. I decided to film the assembly of this engine This is a late 70s, early 80s Toyota 2T-G. It was a 1588cc double overhead cam engine that Japan and actually most of the rest of the world got, but we didn't get here in the US, and it's a shame because they were great engines. I've got a 1973 Toyota Corolla, and I'm going to be pulling the pushrod version of this engine out and putting this double overhead cam engine in its place. Whoever built this particular engine had performance in mind. This engine stock would have been 1588 cc's with a 70 millimeter stroke and an 85 millimeter bore. Whoever put this one together took the larger crank out of Toyota's 1.8 liter engine and put it in this, and then they overbored it from 85 millimeters to 89 millimeters, so it's displacing 1941 cc's. So as these double overhead cam vintage Toyota engines go, this one's a bit of a big hitter, and I'm pretty excited about being able to put it in my little Corolla. It'll be a complete bolt-in swap because this block is identical to the block that's already in the car. So all my accessories, the bell housing, flywheel, clutch, everything just bolts right to the block just as it is with the block in the car. The basic difference is this chain drive and a double overhead cam. That's fundamentally the difference between the two. And of course, in going up to 1941 cc's as well, so it should be interesting. So we're going to start getting the front cover here on the engine. The short block was already assembled, and everything that I could check, it appeared to be in great shape. The history that I feel pretty confident with is that it only ran for a little while before the fella who actually had put it in a little race car kind of wiped the field in one of the NASCAR mini stock classes, and the inspectors told him, do not bring that engine back. It may be legal this week, but it won't be legal next week. So he pulled the double overhead cam motor out and went back to the pushrod engine that was illegal. And I'm not exactly sure how long, 5-10 years later, I became the beneficiary of that when I picked up this block. It looks brand new on the inside. Everything is just as clean as a whistle. Clearly had been freshly built to go racing with, and then used for one race and not used anymore. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to work well. Took the head off, disassembled the head to be sure everything looked good there, and put it back together, and everything looks great. So the front cover will be the first piece. Here's what's a little tricky about this. If you can see that link right there, it's a slightly different color than the rest of them, along with this link and this link. So they're giving you some hints on how to put this together so that you have a good shot at having the cam timing be right. The engine is currently sitting at top dead center on number 1. And when you do that, you've got a dot on this sprocket, which is at the bottom, and this link is lined up with that dot. So when I go to put the front cover on, I'll have to hold the chain up and keep this engaged, and then slide the front cover on. Once the cover's on, the cover fits tight enough to the bottom here that it won't let the chain come off. And then when I pull this up into the head, I'll do that in another video, there's a mark on one of the cam sprockets that will line up with this link, and there's a mark on the other cam sprocket that will line up with this link, and that'll tell me that I'm pretty close to having my cam timing right. There's some other fine-tuning adjustments we can make to cam timing. We'll cover that when we get to that video. And a little assembly goop on these gaskets, get the front cover on, and we'll go from there. I think you can see we've got our gasket in place on both sides. This gasket dressing gets a little bit tacky, so it helps hold the gasket in place. So now we're going to go ahead and attempt to install our front timing cover. So I've got to hold that chain guide out of the way, and then I've got to hold that guy up in the air. Keep upward tension on the chain, and then all right, Chain looks good and engaged. So I'm just going to kind of let it drape over the side here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and let it pile up right in there. Chain was kind of oily, so let me get my hands clean here before I start with my fasteners. That slid right on, all the way on the dowels, so I know I'm in good shape and I know my chain is engaged. When I disassembled, I always try to leave my fasteners with the part, so for a while they were actually screwed into the block. Once I got the front cover cleaned up, I just placed them through the holes that they're supposed to go back through. The nuts, of course, not so critical. That way I'm sure I've got everything back in the right spot. Although with most of these, it's usually kind of obvious because something won't fit because it's not the right length. This nut is actually the hinge bolt for the chain slider here. So it does have to be snug, but it does not hold the front cover on. All right. 12 millimeter, and we're gonna kind of start more or less in the middle. And just kind of snug these things up. Now we're starting to get snug all the way around, so I think I'm at a place now where I can probably grab the torque wrench and go ahead and set them at the final torque. For a while there, when I would tighten some, others would be a little loose, and so you knew you weren't pulled up evenly all the way around. But now we're pretty similar. All right, that's that. I'm happy with it. Next we'll be putting the head in place, and then we can route this chain up and get it engaged with the sprockets on the cams. All right, we're gonna see about flipping the engine over and putting the oil pan on. That should do. Put a little bit of tension back on her. Just a little bit of brake clean here on this bottom pan surface, which is still pretty clean from before, although you wouldn't know it. I'm actually going to be taking this back off. I'm going to use the old gasket, which is in good shape, and put this on so that I can flip it over. Once I get the head gasket on and the head on, then I'm going to go ahead and prime it on the stand, and that'll give me a chance to actually see how much oil I can put in this crankcase, make a new mark on the dipstick if I need to, things like that. And then I'll pull the oil pan back off and clean everything up and put a new gasket on it with the proper gasket goop. And I just gotta figure out which way this thing goes. And I believe that it is not like that, but like this. And I just confirmed it because I can see the impressions in the gasket that were made by the bottom of the oil pan. So with that there, Actually going to wipe the gasket down a little bit so we don't make any more of a mess on the bottom of the pan than we have to. There we go. Pan's all freshly painted, so I want to kind of keep my gloves clean. You have 2 studs on this, and all the rest are bolts, and that makes alignment really easy. And since we're just going around putting bolts in, which is pretty boring, come to think of, the whole process of assembling one of these is pretty boring. I'm going to pause for a minute and we'll come back in a second. And back to the oil pan, just a quick shot. Everything is snugged down with the old gasket so that I can do some priming and some dipstick level checking. And then once I've primed it, I actually will probably drain it and take the cheap Walmart filter I put on it just for that purpose, and then put a better filter on it with the oil that I want to run. So pretty straightforward. All right, thanks for watching.
Really appreciate you guys watching if you made it this far. I know it wasn't a Celine or a Fox Mustang. I am definitely one of those people who loves the Fox Mustangs a lot. Obviously, you can look at my channel and see all the stuff I'm doing with Mark Lamaskin and other things. But I chose the brand name Purist Motorsports for a reason, because I love stuff like this. The cool and unusual that ends up in its own brand. You know, I guess it would be the similar thing of finding a single overhead cam, the 427 motor from 69 or 70, and putting it into a fastback Mustang, and that's the kind of stuff that I like. It's really, and then of course the attention to detail. That's Purist to me, is something that's within the brand. I get the LS swaps. I myself may do one on my Tahoe, but I think that's within the brand. There's something about that when it's finding something that works within the brand, even if it's a later one, put in an earlier one. A Coyote Swap's a good example for the Fox, and for new edge cars, it's a great motor, excellent platform to put into something light and make it fast. So, but to me, I also like the old stuff that you get into when you put in hot rods from the 40s and 50s, where they were taking big old Cadillac motors and putting them in little bitty 33, 34, 35 Fords and making them go fast on the salt flats. To me, there's something to be said about the history behind all of that and why people do that. It's no different than the LS swaps that people do today, or the Coyote swaps that do today. I've seen Coyotes actually over in the General Motors brand. It's a great platform. If you want to go fast, that's what you do. But to me, with you stay and give yourself within the brand, to me, that's a pretty big deal. But anyways, I want to say thank you so much to Michael for putting that together. We've got more coming on this because it's such a cool little build. I really think you'll enjoy it. I mean, who else finds a Hemi head dual overhead cam motor with all of the exact modifications you were going to do to the motor in your own backyard? You literally drove across town, picked it up. Probably could have picked it up with 2 people and put it in there because it's so small, but it's the perfect thing for a Corolla build, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to add something like that into that car? We've already had people comment on the website of saying that they wish they had the motor to put into their car, so, or their Corolla, but it's very rare. And congrats, Michael. We're very excited for you, and I can't wait to get over there to do an actual video of us maybe driving the car with that motor in it. That would be cool. And then to introduce people to the other car, which is LS swapped. It's a 1982 242 with an LS in it. And it also has a modified 8.8 from a Mustang as a rear end. Really excellent car, but it is totally not stock, but it is very well engineered. So anyways, Whether you're driving them or restoring them, always enjoy them. Peace.